She spilled coffee on a stranger. Then he proposed months later. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. It all started with a scream. Not a loud one, just a sharp gasp, barely heard over the clatter of coffee cups and the hiss of steamed milk. But for Sophia, that sound would echo through everything that came next. Moments before, she'd been smiling politely behind the counter, her apron askew, hands sticky with syrup from a rushed caramel drizzle. It wasn't even her shift. She wasn't supposed to be here. She had a final in psychology the next morning, a textbook filled with highlighter marks still open on her tiny kitchen table back home. So how did she end up here, standing frozen, staring into the eyes of a man she'd just doused with coffee? The morning had started like any other, until her phone buzzed at 5:42 a.m. "Lena, please. I'm sick. I need you to cover. Just this once." Sophia's first instinct was to ignore it. She had barely gotten 3 hours of sleep, and her brain still throbbed from the study cram the night before. But then came the second message. "Lena, if I miss another shift, I'm fired." And just like that, guilt won. 20 minutes later, Sophia was speed walking through dew-kissed sidewalks, still buttoning her jacket, hair in a messy bun, mumbling the day's to-do list like a prayer. She didn't know that every second of that rushed morning was aligning her with someone she was never meant to meet. The coffee shop buzzed with its usual morning chaos. Suits on Bluetooth calls, students with bloodshot eyes, joggers ordering oat milk lattes. Sophia slipped into the rhythm, taking orders, calling names, wiping counters. Double espresso, black. No sugar. The voice was smooth, confident. She turned, and her breath caught. The man in front of her didn't belong in this world of cardboard sleeves and under-caffeinated grumbles. He wore a charcoal gray overcoat over a tailored suit. No logo in sight, but the kind of quiet wealth you feel more than see. His expression was unreadable, eyes sharp yet distant. He didn't look at the menu. He didn't need to. Sophia blinked, then nodded. Coming right up. She turned to make the drink, her hands suddenly clumsy. The espresso machine sputtered with more force than expected. As she reached for the cup, someone called her name. Sophia. She turned her head, and in that split second, her elbow bumped the freshly poured cup. Time slowed. The liquid arced in midair. The man didn't flinch. The cup hit his chest. Coffee bloomed across his shirt like a spreading fire. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She grabbed napkins, her heart hammering so loud she couldn't hear anything else. Customers turned. Someone stifled a laugh. The shop's manager peeked from the back, eyebrows raised. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't looking. Please." The man didn't say a word. He just looked at her, not with anger, not even with surprise. Just a long, steady gaze that unnerved her more than shouting ever could. There was something in his eyes. Recognition? Curiosity? A flicker of something like relief? Sophia froze. She didn't know why she couldn't look away. The air between them felt suspended. She couldn't explain it, but in that moment, it was as if he was seeing someone he hadn't expected to find. Then, without a word, he took the napkins from her hand, dabbed his coat lightly, and pulled out his wallet. "No, please," she said, panicked. "You don't have to pay. Your shirt, it's ruined." He smiled faintly, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I believe I ordered it hot." And with that, he placed a $100 bill in the tip jar, turned, and walked out. Sophia stood frozen, napkin still in her hand. The coffee shop fell back in motion, but she didn't move. "Who was that?" someone whispered behind her. "No idea," said another. But he didn't even yell. "That's weird." Sophia finally exhaled. Her hands were still shaking. She turned back to the register, cheeks burning, trying to disappear behind her hair. But when her shift ended an hour later, something stopped her. A note, folded neatly and placed under the jar where the tip had been. Her name was written on it. She opened it. Sometimes, accidents show us what really matters. Don't apologize for being real. There was no name, no phone number, nothing else. Back in her apartment that night, Sophia sat cross-legged on her bed, the note beside her, her textbook still untouched. She stared at the words again. It wasn't just the money. It was the way he'd looked at her, like he saw through everything. Through the awkwardness, the nerves, even the coffee stain on her apron. She'd spent her whole life trying to be invisible, keeping her head down, working shifts, balancing school, helping her mom back home. But now a stranger had looked at her like she was someone worth noticing. And that terrified her more than anything. Across the city, in a glass office 10 floors above the street, Damian sat in silence. His assistant stood nearby, confused. "You wanted to find her?" he asked. Damian's eyes were fixed on a security camera still image, paused on the exact moment Sophia had realized what she'd done. He zoomed in, not on her mistake, but on her expression, raw, unfiltered, unguarded. "Name, background, everything." The assistant blinked. "With all due respect, sir, why?" Damian's voice was quiet, unreadable. "Because I might have just found her." "Found who?" He finally looked up. "My future wife." Sophia hadn't slept. She tried, pulled the covers over her head, forced her eyes shut, even turned off her phone. But the memory kept looping, her hand knocking over the coffee, the splash across his suit, the way he just looked at her. Not in disgust, not even annoyance, just quiet, unshaken curiosity. She reached for the folded note on her nightstand. Sometimes, accidents reveal the truth. The handwriting was deliberate, almost too clean. A message meant to comfort, or something more. Either way, her brain refused to let it go. The next morning, she returned to the shop just to ask her manager one question. Did he say anything when he left? Marla, her no-nonsense shift lead, raised an eyebrow while rinsing a blender. Didn't say much. Just handed me this. She pulled a white envelope from under the register. Sophia opened it with cautious fingers. Inside, $500 in cash and a second note. Split it how you like, but make sure she gets the largest share. No name, no business card. Just that. Who was that guy? Sophia murmured. Marla shrugged. No idea. But if that's how he handles being burned with coffee, I'd say he's got a hell of a poker face. Elsewhere in the city, poker faces were a daily necessity. Damian sat at the head of a long table in a corner office lined with glass. Sunlight spilled in, casting soft reflections across the polished surface. But inside, tension simmered. We need stability, said one board member, fingers steepled, voice sharp. If this merger is going to pass, we have to show investors you're not just another eccentric genius. Damian leaned back in his chair. You mean you want me to look more married and less unpredictable? Another executive laughed under his breath. Put it however you want, but yes. Family man image sells better than lone wolf billionaire. The words bounced off Damian without a ripple. He didn't blink. He didn't argue. He already knew. He had built empires from silence and instinct. And right now, both were pointing him back to that coffee shop. Not because he'd enjoyed the chaos. Not because he'd needed the caffeine. But because, in the middle of routine and noise, someone hadn't treated him like a title or a wallet. She hadn't even recognized him. And that was exactly what made her unforgettable. He didn't need perfect. He needed real. And real had spilled coffee on his chest and looked at him like she expected her world to end. Find her, he said later to his assistant, without raising his voice. Find who? The assistant asked. The girl from the coffee shop. The assistant paused. Do you want her fired? Compensated? I can send No, Damian cut in. Find out her name. Her schedule. Where she lives. Quietly. There was a pause. Understood. Sophia had no idea a search had begun. She moved through her day like she was walking on unfamiliar ground. Everything looked the same. Lecture halls, scribbled notes, noisy roommates, but nothing felt the same. The man's face kept flashing back. Something about his eyes. The way he didn't flinch. Like he was used to people breaking around him. That night, she sat at the cafe again. Not working, just sipping a lukewarm tea, watching the door. He didn't come in. Damian watched from across the street. Not stalking, just observing. He needed to understand who she was without interfering. Her laugh, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when reading, the absent-minded way she stirred her drink even when it wasn't sweetened. It was oddly peaceful. No pretense. No stage conversations. Just a moment he hadn't planned and couldn't stop thinking about. The next day, Sophia opened her email to find something strange. A message from a recruitment agency she'd never applied to. You've been identified as a candidate for a private internship opportunity tailored to your background and studies. Flexible hours. Generous compensation. Coffee shop management experience preferred. Her eyes narrowed. No links. No scams. Just a callback number and a name she didn't recognize. She closed her laptop, her gut twisting. Damian wasn't used to this, second-guessing. But there was something about Sophia that unsettled the normal calculations. He had power, influence, access, but none of it guaranteed trust. She wasn't someone he could impress with a car or dinner reservation. He'd seen that in her eyes. She cared about her friend's job, her grades, a spilled drink. She didn't care about wealth, and that's what made her dangerous. Because if she walked away, it wouldn't be because of who he was. It would be because of who he wasn't. That night, he stared out the window of his penthouse, city lights flickering below. In his hand was her name, Sophia Monroe, scribbled on the corner of a printout. A file sat on his desk, untouched. He didn't want to resume. He wanted her truth, and that couldn't be bought. Back in her apartment, Sophia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the recruitment email still haunting her. Something was shifting. She felt it. Like the hinge of her life had just turned and the door hadn't fully opened yet. She didn't know what was coming, but she could feel it watching her, waiting. The invitation came on a Wednesday. Sophia almost deleted the email on sight. A networking dinner? She didn't remember applying for one, but the wording caught her attention. Private opportunity. Small circle. RSVP required. Transportation provided. There was no logo, no generic branding, just a name at the bottom. Elijah Quinn, talent liaison. Still, she hesitated until she noticed the postscript. Someone noticed your potential. He'd like to meet you again. That line sent a shiver down her spine. She said yes. 2 nights later, a sleek black car pulled up in front of her apartment. The driver stepped out, opened the door, and nodded. Miss Monroe. No questions. No address check. Sophia climbed in, heart thumping. The car wove through the city, past places she recognized, and then into a district where the buildings whispered of money rather than shouted. Glass and steel towers, quiet fountains, doormen in tailored suits. They stopped in front of a rooftop restaurant, a private entrance. No crowd, no host stand, just a man in a dark suit waiting at the elevator. He smiled when he saw her. Not Elijah. Damian, you. The word escaped before she could stop it. He stepped aside, gesturing to the elevator. Come up. We can talk privately. She didn't move. He didn't push. Eventually, curiosity nudged her forward. The rooftop was quiet, lit by soft, golden lanterns and framed by the city skyline. No other guests. Just a table set for 2. She sat, stiff, unsure. He poured water. Not wine. You really don't remember me, do you? He asked. Sophia blinked. Aside from the coffee incident? No. He nodded, amused. Good. That means this might work. Her stomach tightened. What exactly is this? He leaned forward. Let me be blunt. I need someone to pretend to be engaged to me. For 3 months. The silence between them snapped like glass. You what? She asked. My company's going through a delicate merger. Perception matters. My board wants me married, or close enough to project stability. She shook her head slowly. You want to fake a relationship, just long enough to get through the deal. Public events, a few appearances, rehearsed answers, nothing illegal, nothing indecent. She stared at him. And you chose me because you didn't know who I was, because you didn't panic, because you were honest and unfiltered, and somehow managed to spill coffee on me without pretending to be sorry just to cover yourself. Sophia frowned. You want to buy my authenticity. I want to borrow it. She stood up. This is insane. I'll pay off your entire tuition, he said quietly. She froze. All of it. Every remaining dollar. In full. Today. The words hung in the air like a trap. Sharp, glinting. She swallowed. What's the catch? No catch. You play the part. You disappear when it's done. I'll even throw in a contract and a lawyer if you want one. And if I say no, I thank you for your time and drive you home. She looked out over the city, breathing through the wave of pressure rising in her chest. 3 months. Tuition. Freedom. And a man she didn't trust offering all of it. Later that night, she signed. Not because she wanted to, because she couldn't afford not to. The transformation began the next morning. A woman named Tessa arrived at her door with garment bags, beauty kits, and a schedule. Public dinner Thursday. Gala Saturday. Brunch with the Bennett Foundation next week. You'll need to rehearse your story. Sophia barely had time to question anything. She met Damian again 2 days later at a photography studio. They posed like they'd known each other for years. Arms linked, hands clasped, stolen glances. It felt wrong, but it didn't feel fake. They rehearsed their backstory in a quiet corner of his penthouse. "Where'd we meet?" she asked. "At a startup event in Chicago. You were managing coffee service." "Of course. What's our song?" "Don't need one. We're not that cheesy." She raised an eyebrow. "You think this is going to fool people?" He looked at her with something unreadable. "It already is." Public outings followed. They attended a gallery opening, where Damian held her hand lightly and whispered observations about the art, like they were old friends. At a charity auction, he let her do the bidding, smiling when she won a signed book she'd always dreamed of owning. The press took notice. Headlines spun stories. Tech tycoon finally tamed. Mystery girl melts the billionaire's armor. Sophia hated how easily it worked, how effortlessly he played the role. But what bothered her more was how natural she felt beside him. Behind closed doors, he was reserved but never cold. He made her tea when she looked tired, asked about her classes, listened, really listened. He told her about his late parents, his early failures, the pressure of leading people who didn't think he had a heart. "You don't talk about yourself," he said one night, leaning against the kitchen island. "There's not much to say. There's always something." She looked away. "I'm just surviving." He nodded. "That's the most honest thing I've heard all week." One evening, as they rehearsed for another event, he took her hand, not for a photo, not for show, just held it. No words, just warmth. Sophia didn't pull away. By week 3, she knew how he liked his coffee, how he loosened his tie slightly before making a decision, how he used silence to control a room, but never to hurt her. And she hated how much she noticed. Because this wasn't real. Couldn't be. She reminded herself every night. But her heart didn't listen. Sophia had learned how to fake a smile, how to nod in the right places, tilt her head, just so, laugh like she belonged in this shimmering world of suits and champagne. But lately, something unspoken had settled between her and Damian, something neither of them acknowledged, yet both of them carried. It wasn't part of the contract. The gala was held at the Harrington estate, where chandeliers floated like stars and string quartets played for people who never had to ask the price of anything. Sophia wore a black silk gown tailored to perfection. Damian, as always, looked effortless, confident in a way that drew eyes without trying. But tonight, she noticed something else in him. Distance. He moved through conversations, hand lightly resting on the small of her back, smiling for cameras, laughing on cue. But his gaze, when it met hers, seemed almost distracted, like he was somewhere else entirely. Between toasts and photo ops, they found themselves alone in a side hallway lined with portraits. She leaned against the wall. "You okay?" He paused, then gave a small shrug. "Haven't been to this place in years. Last time was with my parents." She turned. "You never talk about them." "There's not much to tell." She didn't push, just waited. Damian sighed. "They died when I was 16. Car accident. My aunt raised me for a while, but she was more interested in the inheritance than in me." Sophia looked at him, really looked. The confidence, the control. It had always seemed unshakable. But now, in the quiet of that hallway, he looked tired. "Trust is expensive," he said softly, "and I've learned not to buy it." That night, she didn't sleep. Not because she was confused, but because for the first time, she was sure of something that scared her. Damian was no longer a job. He was becoming a person. A week later, things began to shift. Lena noticed first. "You're not just doing this for the money anymore," she said, arms crossed, watching Sophia try on a dress for another event. Sophia avoided her reflection. "It's just part of the role." "No, it's not. I know you, and I've seen the way you talk about him now. Like you're trying not to care." Sophia said nothing. Lena stepped closer. "He has everything. You have everything to lose. Be careful. Others were watching too. Specifically, Nicholas Haverly, Damian's oldest board member and least subtle critic. At a fundraising dinner, he cornered her beside the hors d'oeuvres. "Quite the rise you've had, Miss Monroe," he said, sipping something amber. "From barista to belle of the ball." Sophia smiled politely. "It's been an adjustment." "I imagine so." "And Damian? He trusts you already." She hesitated. "I suppose." He chuckled. "He doesn't trust anyone. Keep that in mind." The message was clear. She didn't belong here. Not really. And the wolves were circling. Later, she told Damian, "I think your board is trying to peel me off." He didn't look surprised. "They don't like unpredictability. And you are unpredictable." She smiled faintly. "You sound like you're blaming me." "No," he looked at her. "I'm thanking you. They spent more time together, but not just at galas or business events." He took her to a quiet rooftop garden above one of his buildings. They watched the city from there in silence, the wind teasing her hair. He asked about her childhood, her mother's long hours, the scholarship she almost didn't get, the nights she cried in frustration over bills and exams. No one had ever asked. Not really. And when he listened, it wasn't polite. It was intent. "I don't know when this stopped being an act," he said one night, after they'd left an event hand in hand, their steps slow, unhurried. She looked up at him. Streetlights painted his face in gold and shadow. "I don't either," she whispered. Still, nothing was simple. Nicholas wasn't letting go. Rumors reached Sophia, calls being made, private questions asked. People digging. Damian confronted him privately. "If you sabotage her, you sabotage me," he warned. Nicholas smiled like a man who'd heard it all before. "I don't believe in fairy tales, Damian, and I certainly don't trust coffee shop miracles." Back at her apartment, Sophia sat with Lena again. "I think I'm in trouble," she admitted. "With him. With myself." Lena took her hand. "Then ask yourself this. If there was no money, would you still want him?" Sophia didn't answer. She didn't need to. On their next outing, they weren't followed by photographers. No cameras. No stage. They simply walked, quiet streets, no agenda. Damian stopped in front of a bookstore. "They're closed," she said. He smiled. "I own it." He unlocked the door, let her inside, and turned on the lights. Books everywhere. The scent of ink and old paper. A peace she hadn't felt in weeks. They sat on the floor in the fiction aisle. No suits. No plans. Just two people pretending, yet somehow more real than ever before. "Why me?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because you never looked at me like I owed you anything." Sophia's chest tightened. "I didn't expect to feel anything," she said. "But you do." "So do you." Neither denied it. They sat in silence, fingers brushing slightly on the carpet. Outside, the city breathed on without them. Inside, two hearts blurred the lines between contract and connection, and neither of them knew what would happen when the truth demanded to be seen. Sophia never saw it coming. The morning had started like any other. She was halfway through a lecture, taking notes, trying not to think about the way Damian had looked at her the night before when they sat surrounded by books and said nothing, yet everything. Then her phone buzzed. 17 missed calls, 3 voicemails, dozens of texts. She opened one message. It was a link, and there it was, her face splashed across a tabloid headline. "Fake fiancé, billionaire's secret arrangement exposed." Beneath it, stage photos, leaked details, twisted quotes, and worst of all, a line claiming she had auditioned to be Damian's public girlfriend for a hefty payout. The article dripped with mockery. A waitress turned gold digger. A Cinderella scam. Sophia felt her stomach drop. In a single moment, everything she thought she was building turned into a performance she apparently never stopped giving. She left campus without a word. Lena found her later that night sitting on the couch, phone face down, eyes red. "He lied," Sophia whispered. Maybe not with words, but with silence. "He let me believe it meant something." Lena sat beside her. "You don't know he leaked it." "No," Sophia murmured, "but I know he didn't stop it." Meanwhile, chaos erupted in Damian's world. The board convened an emergency session. Investors called. Reporters circled. He read the headlines in silence, jaw tight. He recognized Nicholas's fingerprints all over it, an orchestrated leak, timed too perfectly to be coincidence. His assistant entered quietly. "Sir, your calendar. Clear it." "But the Bennett deal." "I said clear it." He stood, calm but lethal, and walked straight into the boardroom. Nicholas met his gaze, smug. Quite the distraction. Damian didn't sit. "This isn't a negotiation," he said. "It ends now." "You mean the charade?" "I mean the manipulation. The threats. The digging into someone who never asked to be part of your politics." The board watched, silent. "She walked away before I could stop her," Damian continued. "But I'm not letting you bury her to protect your image of me." Nicholas smirked. "What exactly do you intend to do? Hold a press conference and confess your feelings?" Damian stepped closer. "If I have to, yes." Later that night, Sophia sat alone in the same cafe where it all began. It was quiet now. The morning rush had long faded. A single barista worked the counter, someone she didn't know. She stirred her tea, staring into the cup like it might give her answers. So much had changed, and yet she was back where it started. Anonymous, invisible, except she didn't feel the same anymore. Not because of the money, not because of the dresses, or the press, or the lights, but because someone had looked at her like she mattered. And for a while, she believed it, even if it wasn't real. The bell above the door chimed. She didn't turn around, not until a voice spoke, low but steady. "Sophia." She looked up. Damian stood there, no entourage, no suit. Just jeans, a plain jacket, and eyes that held none of their usual steel. "I didn't leak anything," he said quietly, "but I should have protected you from those who did." She didn't speak. "I let them use you to control me. I thought I could keep you safe by keeping you distant. I was wrong." Sophia stood slowly. "So now what? Another proposal with conditions?" "No." He reached into his pocket. Her breath caught, not because of what he held, but because of where they were. The very floor where their lives collided over a spilled drink and an apology. He knelt. No cameras, no audience, no script, just one man, one question. "I told myself this started as a deal," he said. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped pretending. And if you're willing to risk your heart again, I'd like to spend the rest of my life proving I'm not a transaction." Tears blurred her vision. "This is crazy." He smiled. "So was coffee on a $1,000 coat." She laughed, just once, and nodded. "Yes. The day I spilled coffee on a stranger. I thought I'd ruined everything. I didn't know I was pouring the first drop of something beautiful." If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from, and drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think about Sophia's journey from coffee shop shifts to an unexpected proposal from Damian? Did Lena's advice help or hurt? And how did you feel when Nicholas tried to ruin it all? We'd love to hear your favorite moment. Was it the rooftop confessions, the bookstore scene, or that final proposal in the cafe? Your support helps us bring more stories to life. Thank you.